Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and mount the new highway bars and lower fairings on my 2016 Indian Chieftain. Didn't seem to find too many videos on it, so I thought I'd go ahead and upload some stuff and hope this helps some people out. Okay, so these bars are definitely a good amount of weight to them. So you have 2 bolts up top and then 2 on the lowers. I did remove the mounting screw for the brake line clamp just to give me a little bit more room to slide the bars. You want to get them behind this brake line, not in front of it, so you're not pinching on the brake line. So you want to loosen that, do that. To get that through, you'll need to bring it in through the left side of the bike over to the right side. Seemed to be a little easier to maneuver it through there because there's not a lot of space in there. But at least that way it's not pinching the actual brake line, which we don't want any binding on that. Then I set the bottom screw here that you had set for it. Then I set one of these top screws. Then I set the other top screw. And then I went over to the right side of the bike and maneuvered my fingers in there to get this back one here. However, this one is going to be a little bit of a bear to try and tighten down. I may have to actually drop the floorboard on the left side. I'm going to try my swivel extensions to see if that'll work without removing it. If not, then I'll have to remove that, and I'll get back with you on that in a couple minutes. Okay, so I did have to remove the right floorboard. There's just 2 screws, or bolts rather. One here, you can see that, and the other one is recessed back in this little cove right here, and it is a hexed head bolt. I use the extension ones I got at Harbor Freight. It's a 5/16 to loosen those 2. Then you get those on and got that one set in. Then I set the other side, which pretty much I just used a long extension along with this long Allen socket to get that one to go in, which made it a little easier. And then I had the 2 bolts up top, here and here, that go in. Kind of draw them down a little bit, every one before I tightened them real tight. Now I just need to go and install this one again for the brake line back through. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Kind of really hard to try and do stuff with one hand. I'll try it, but I think I'm probably going to have to set the phone down to actually get that to go in there. So let's take a look. Yeah, I'm going to have to set this down. Okay, yeah, so if you can see that little bolt right there, again, this is a hexed head. This one is a 3/16. These extended ones help out a lot, and they're pretty reasonably priced. You can get them at Harbor Freight. And I got the wobble ones, which is basically, I don't know if you can get a better angle at it from this way or not, but see how it's kind of got an oddball shape. It's not sharp edges, so you can actually tilt it at a slight angle and get it to bite and crank down good without any slipping or anything off of that. These are definitely well worth the money. Like I said, they weren't even that much. You can get a whole packet of them from Harbor Freight, pretty reasonable. So that's where we're at there. These are all mounted. Now I just need to see if the lower fairing fits on there with these on, or if I actually have to end up removing these. So I'll be back. We'll take a look, see what we got. Okay, folks. Yeah. So an extra set of hands definitely would help with the fairing part, just because the screws are so short and it's a tight area. Trying to put leverage on the screw bolt to actually get it to go into the lock clip to thread on and hold the fairing in the right spot it's a little challenging. You got one screw up here, right here. You have another one down here, and you have another one here. I found out it was a little bit easier to start threading this one here on first, just getting it a little bit threaded on, then thread the bottom one on a little bit. Then you can kind of use your left hand and kind of push down and in on the top one to get that one in. That's the hardest one to get lined up to go in, again, because the bolts that come with it are so short and it doesn't give you much room to push the clamps closed tight and get the bolt on there. So it's a little bit challenging. Tried using a larger one, even with a impact ratchet, which did not help at all. Just too bulky with everything, trying to get it in there. So what I ended up doing was using a smaller size ratchet here with a short extension, again, a wobbles extension, and then a deep well socket to get that to go in. And that's a 10 millimeter socket for that. So they're on this side. I did have to remove the foot pad that came with the Mustang bars. However, you wouldn't be able to use it anyways because the fairing would cover it up. It goes right here. But there's not a lot of clearance tolerance here to leave this on there. And all I had to do, I didn't have to cut anything or anything. I just used a flat tip screwdriver, push this end out a little bit to expose this hinge pin that they had in there holding it. Then I just took a pair of pliers and then pulled it out. It came out real easy, slid right out, and then this came right off. So I could save these for down the road if I decided to get rid of the fairings, or if something happened to them. Hopefully nothing will, but if something were and I wanted to put those back on there, but I probably will not do that. I will probably be adding some offset highway bars because I like to keep my feet still on the floorboard, but then have someone to rest my toe on it would help, because I could put it out this way a little bit, so, and have more maneuverability with that. So it looks like I'll have clearance to actually do that, so I'll probably do that. That'll be one of my next things to do. I'm going to go ahead and move the tools over to the other side and go ahead and mount the other side. I have to go inside and grab that one. These fairings are actually, they were a different color. They were actually red. I bought them from Indian directly. They actually had a clearance on them because they were Indian red, and they don't make Indian red anymore. So they had a number of those that were already pre-painted, and I actually got the inner and outer fairing, and I got a discount. I think it was like $30 or $40 discount for end of the year discount that they just threw in. So both inner and outer fairings for both sides cost me about $330, I think it was, which is pretty good. Normally it would have been like $380 when I had them sitting in my cart for the longest time and just never got around to doing it. So then I just resanded them down and etched them, and then I repainted them the matte black to go with the matte black on the Dark Horse. So that all went well. And then the bars, I had actually another set of bars that were Mustang bars that I was hoping would have worked. They're Lindby bars. In pretty good shape still. I mean, all the O-ring bushings are still there for the foot pegs for that. Um, but the problem was because these are welded point bars and you've got these sharp cut edges here and here, the lower fairing just didn't fit right. I mean, I probably could have forced it, but the angles would have been off a little bit, and to me, it just wasn't worth it. I think I paid another 150 for these bars from Amazon, and they're actually heavier than Lambie bars. Lot heavier, probably 3 times heavier than the other ones. So they're actually probably going to even hold up even better than the others. So which allowed that fairing to go on pretty good. And there goes my dog barking again. Kayla. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and get the other lower fairing and go ahead and get that installed. Okay, so I'm gonna try and show you guys if I can do this one-handed, at least parts of it. So this is the pad that I took off the other side, the foot pad. So I'm just basically turning this around, and then all I need to do is, let me switch hands here. Pop that off of there like that, and then it exposes the end of the pin. Then a pair of pliers, and slide it right out. And then there's the pin, hinge pin, and then this actually just slides right off. Pretty easy, pretty simple, easy design. Actually, hopefully they would have held up. There wasn't much in there. I would have thought that they would have ran that pin a little longer, or maybe put at least on one end of them a bent or hooked end to actually hold it in place to where it wouldn't eventually fall off, because I would imagine your feet, you're going to put a lot of pressure on that, moving it around. So those probably wouldn't have held up too well anyways, but I really didn't get the bars for that, so I'm not really too concerned about it. And then these are the actual clamps that I was talking about. You have to get on. Basically, you're putting them on, then you have to squeeze them down and get the bolt in there, and they're pretty strong. They're pretty tight. They're not that easy to do. So that's pretty much what we got to do. So then this one will go on. I think it goes this way, upward. Again, pretty tight. And the other side, I got to double check it. This one, the top one goes like that, and this one goes down also. So basically, two go down, so I actually have to spin this one around because I got it backwards. So this goes like that, it spins around. This one has to come back off. And then it goes on that, pushes back down. Again, what I found was a little bit easier was I took the 3 bolts, which I have to actually pull them back out of the lower fairing. This is the other one over on the other side there on the bench. And set the screws and bolts in there. Rather, I keep calling them screws or bolts. Slide them through the holes so they're both in both holes. Then when I set the fairing on, it's a little easier because the screw's already there, the bolt's already there, and I'm just lining it up, hopefully, and getting it to go back on there. So, I need 2 hands for this because I don't have anybody helping me today. All right, thanks. So, basically, this is what I mean. I just set these bolts in there to line that up. Again, there's a lot of resistance there. We're trying to get that to go on. So, it just makes it a little easier. It's just one less extra thing you have to do when you go on there, and this one's going to be even tougher for me because I'm right-handed, not left-handed, and I have to thread it on with my left hand. So this will be fun. Okay, folks, there she is. She's on. This time I actually ended up threading that one on first. Then I did, I think, and then I started the bottom one, then I went to that one. I'm not sure if that's the same way I did it last time. I don't think it was. I think I started on the bottom last time. But that seemed to go a little bit easier, especially considering I'm not left-handed, so that was loads of fun. But they're pretty much in. All in all, it went pretty good. Didn't take me too long. I think it took me more work trying to get the bike up on the lift stand than it was to actually install all this. So basically, again, these are the ones actually from Indian, directly from Indian. So you've got the full storage compartment. It's not the flap like you see some of the ones on the internet. You have the lower or the upper vent here, and then you actually have your lower vent here. Some of the ones, it really depends on how picky you want to be. Again, these were directly from Indian. So I did notice when I was looking online that some of these actually have the lower vent, like this one is an Indian one, so the lower vent is actually in the actual inner fairing only on the inner edge coming in, and then there's like along with the handle, it's like an integrated diverter that blows air in up against the cylinder head to help cool it down. Some of the other aftermarket ones, the vent is actually here. There's a lever up here, and it actually goes through the actual outer fairing. So really, I mean, not a really big deal. It just depends on how particular you want it to be. I noticed that when I was looking. Again, I was looking at price for one. But then the more I look at it, I kind of like the fact that it is original because it's actually an actual Indian part. But also the vent is in the correct location as what Indian recommended. So again, not that much of a big deal, but I do notice that if I got the ones that actually went through the outer fairing as opposed to the inner edge of it here, your airflow would have came through here. Yes, it would have cooled your leg off more, but you probably would have not have got as much cooling on these cylinder heads, and these being air cooled, these things run hot as it is. So this, I think, will actually help cool the motor down a little bit more, so I don't lose as much of that in the summertime. Again, the main reason I got these was I got so used to the lower fairings because I have the cross-country tour, which has the fairings built into them. And once I got this and started riding this, it definitely makes a difference. Even with, I noticed especially with wind drag on the highway, with the bike being almost as much as what the Victory cross-country tour weighs, this one seemed to be a little bit more looser on the road, and I'm thinking a big part of that was the amount of wind that was coming through, because there was no type of lower fairing or anything on that, and the fact that I did extremely miss the pockets for storage, because you can put other things in there, extra power cord, extra sunglasses for night riding and stuff, so you can switch back and forth, as well as it also gave me somewhere, like on the Victory, I actually put my another garage door opener in there that's velcroed in, actually not velcroed, it's stuck in there to where it can't come out, to where I can actually not have to get off the bike to actually open the garage when I come home. So that's a big plus for me, and may sound like not that big of a deal, but when you're used to it, it's kind of a big deal. So, all right, hopefully this helped some people out on making a decision on what they want to do. Like I said, when I was looking for fairings, trying to get some insight on what it takes to put them in and where to get them, and that was not a lot of information on getting the actual lower fairings installed on a Chieftain. So even though it's no different than the Roadmaster, but the process and getting them done and physically seeing how it helps done. There's a lot of info about adding the rears bars on. There's a lot of information on that, but you don't see even much for actually installing the actual highway bars themselves. And one of the biggest things, like I noticed on whoever put the bars on that were originally on here, they actually did not feed it through this other main brake line coming through. They pushed it up behind it and kind of smashed it up against there. So that didn't cause any problems, but definitely if I would have left that like that, for one, it wasn't right. And secondly, it caused an issue with getting the lower fairing to actually go through on the bar correctly and lay right. It would have pinched, or you would have to force this over, which would have put a bind on this, and this is a pretty rigid brake line here. So as you can see, this actually goes around it and actually comes partway past it and over. This way it doesn't obviously affect the vent, because the vent door itself is actually on the inside of the fairing, not the outside, so it doesn't obstruct it or rub or anything like that. This is actually mounted to the frame portion, and then onto the triple tree. So there may be a little bit of rubbing, but nothing that I see being a huge issue. If I notice any concerns with it, I can actually add a piece in there of rubber tubing or cloth loom, to actually help protect it and the wear of it. So, but I'm not anticipating too much of an issue with it. So, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a comment. I'll see what I can do for you. I'm not a huge YouTube person, but again, I seen this and thought hopefully it would help somebody out. So, all right, thanks.